Hi, I'm Jackson Moore. I'm a kicker from Charlotte, North Carolina, committed to the University of Kentucky, and I'm from Marvin Ridge High School.
All right. As y'all know, we've got another interview, and this time it just so happens to be another Kentucky one. Kentucky recruits, players, transfers. They are so nice. They are so easy to get in contact with, unlike other schools, and it is amazing. I love reaching out to the players every time we've gotten to do an interview, even making some posts about them. So thank you for joining us on this extremely busy day. My first question, and it's not me trying to slight you or ask any questions. It's a question that I know is on a lot of people's minds, and specifically mine because I'm confused. Being a high school kicker, you see skill positions such as receivers, DBs, safeties, all that get rated like 4 and 5 stars. How do these recruiting companies go about rating kickers?
So for kickers, there's a bunch of different ranking services that you can go to. I'd say the most there's a couple that are like the most reliable, but really as a kicker, going to camps, getting ranked is not as important as for say a wide receiver or quarterback. I think it's still great to go get the exposure, but I mean, you sign up, go to a camp, get ranked. It's definitely worth the experience and the coaching, but I'd say it's really not as important for a kicker rather than a wide receiver or a quarterback. And I feel like it's a lot harder for those other skill positions to get such a high ranking.
Hey, well, walk us through a camp because when we go and cover camps, I rarely see like kickers there. It's usually, O line, D line, mainly the non special teams positions. What's a camp like what's a camp in the day of a kicker?
So normally you get so like this is for like a college camp, ranking camp, whatever. You get there, you have like let's say 15 to 20 minutes to warm up. Usually after you warm up, you get straight into charting, which is normally it can range. I've gone up to I think 12 kicks is usually like the max I've charted. Usually it ranges between 8 to 12 kicks. You go, you chart, and then for a college camp, you chart, and then you have like competition period, and then you also have a chance to punt if you're a combo guy. But for a ranking camp, usually chart, get that over with, and then you have an instructional period later in the day, and then you have an competition at the end of that. But you normally start, or you always start with a charting, which is the most important part.
All right. So coming into the SEC, you know that it's strict competition, a lot of hard-nosed football. A lot of games come down to the last minute. It usually falls on the kicker's shoulder. If there is one team in the SEC that you would love to beat on a last-second kick, who would it be?
I mean, I think this goes for a lot of us, but probably Georgia. I mean, this year we play at Georgia. Obviously, they're a great team. They're back-to-back champions. So I feel like it'd be such a cool experience just to go into their stadium and beat them with a game-winning kick.
It's got to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience as well. I mean, I get 100% what you're saying. And my final question before I send it off to my two co-hosts here, and I'll be back at the end of the episode with some more questions. So, in how long have you been playing football exactly?
So I started playing football in seventh grade.
All right. Were there any other positions you attempted before kicker?
No, I actually went straight into kicking. I was at a strength and agility workout with my friend just for fun, and I was messing around because I was a soccer player before. I was a goalkeeper. I was messing around with my friend after, and I was kicking a football, and the coach came up to me. He's like, "You're our kicker," and I was very shocked because I always knew soccer. I grew up playing soccer, so I knew nothing else. And so when I started playing football, I went straight to kicker and never really attempted to be in a different position.
All right. I lied and said that that was going to be my last question. This is actually going to be my last one. At what point did you realize that your kicking could get you like an actual scholarship to a D1 school? Because I know plenty of kickers that have the same aspect, they have the same point of view that they want to go play for a D1 school in the SEC. At what point did you realize that you achieved that?
Um, Well, I think it started freshman year. I definitely knew that like I had talent and I could progress in this and somewhat try to make it. But I think really what when I really like realized was between sophomore and junior year, I made a huge jump with my kicking between sophomore and junior year, between like growing and just strength and everything and consistency. And I made a huge jump then, and then I really realized that like, wow, this is really possible, and I have a real shot at this.
All right. Like I said, I'll be back at the end of the episode with a couple more questions, but I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to either Luke or Austin. Whoever wants it, take the stage.
Hey Jackson. So when would you say that you were the most nervous about attempting a field goal in your career?
Um, I think against our there was one game against our rival. It was like a 53-yard field goal, and I mean it was a playoff game, so it was packed. Like as soon as you get call that it's a field goal, all the nerves start to hit. You're back in your stance, you're shaking, you hear the crowd roaring, but I think kicking's a really big mental game. So just getting over that mental block and that mental aspect is a big deal. But in big moments like that, it's like you really have to focus on your breathing and your mental part. But I think the most nervous I was definitely that rival game in the playoffs.
Awesome. Yeah, and obviously there's nerves with kicking. But what would you say is the biggest difference between kicking in practice and then kicking in games?
I think the biggest difference is probably the snap and the hold, because I mean, when you're practicing kicking, you can kind of set it up perfectly every single time, and you can kind of get it how you want it. And then in game, like you never know what you're going to expect with a snap and a hold. There's always that chance that there's going to be a bad snap, a bad hold. So I think that's probably the biggest difference because it's the most unexpected.
Right, and that's really huge. Last question. So what was the recruiting process like as, a five-star kicker?
As much as like it says 5-star kicker as like a label, it's really hard as a kicker because we're pretty we're pretty much last in the recruiting process. Um, and I had to wait a while, and like it was tough because you go on Twitter and you see all these wide receivers, quarterbacks, they get early offers rather than like a kicker. Normally, your offers don't come till senior year. So, I mean, it was rough. I mean, I definitely had interest. I was talking to a lot of coaches pretty early, but I just had to wait for one of the coaches to pull the trigger, and then once one coach pulls the trigger, then most likely the other offers start coming in. So, I mean, I think the hardest part was just getting that one coach to pull the trigger on you, and once one person believes in you, they all the other coaches like a ricochet, all the other coaches start to come in and start to pull the trigger on offers. But I mean, it was stressful, it was rough. It's worth it, but it's it's not easy, and it's yeah.
That makes sense. Thanks for sharing.
All right, so I can go next. So Jackson, I saw on your Twitter, like I think it was a month ago or something, that you hit a personal record with the 65-yard field goal, and congrats, by the way. So, do you feel that you're confident in taking like these long kicks, maybe not necessarily a 65, or even so, but do you feel comfortable taking like these long kicks, like coming in as freshmen for Kentucky? Or do you think it's going to be more of like a build up?
I think the long kicks wouldn't be too much of a struggle, because I try to kick every single ball the same. So it's like you can imagine, like I try to kick this an extra point the same as I would kick a 55-yard field goal.
Really?
It's definitely mental wise, it's definitely different. You're preparing for like a long field goal. You have to pick it maybe a certain angle depending on the wind. But I feel like coming in, like whether it's an extra point or a 50-yard field goal, it's you kind of prepare the same. So as long as you kick it the same every single time, and really and truly, going out and kicking these long balls is it's fun and it's cool to post on Twitter, but being consistent, like 15 in, which is where most of your opportunities are going to come in
Sure.
college or high school, NFL, whatever level, is just I like to prepare for the 15 in, be consistent, but I'm definitely prepared to kick long field goals if I have to.
Cool. And that's interesting because I didn't realize that you'd kind of go through the same kind of motions whether you're kicking an extra point or like a 50-yard field goal. So that's pretty cool. And also, as we were all kind of alluding to, kicking is not only just a physical game, but it's a mental game in the fact that it is probably one of the most mentally tasking positions in football. So could you like walk us through how you maybe calm yourself in like these high pressure situations where you're having to make a good kick?
Yeah, so a big thing for me is breathing. I know like it sounds kind of cliche, but going out there, like your heart starts to race really bad, especially in high pressure situations. I definitely like to breathe, like get a couple of big deep breaths, and also clearing your mind. It's very hard, especially in those kind of situations, not think negatively on yourself. Be like, oh, I'm like, what happens if I miss? But just thinking like trying to clear your mind as best as possible, trying to think positive thoughts is the biggest thing because it's very easy as a kicker to have these negative thoughts come into your mind and just like overfill your mind with all these thoughts before you kick. And so just trying to breathe, calm myself down, try to get rid of all thoughts in my head and limit those negative thoughts and try to turn them positive thoughts is the biggest thing.
Sure. And yeah, I'll honestly argue that's like just as impressive as like actually making the kick as calming yourself because I feel like there are not many people in football in general who could deal with such high pressure, even at like the what you would consider like the top positions. So, third question I have is like these are a little more like honest and kind of lighthearted questions. Outside of football, what are you most excited for when going to college at Kentucky?
Oh, I think for sure, like meeting like all my teammates, all my friends, like a lot of these people that you're gonna meet in college are gonna be your friends for life. So I think like being able to step out and meet new people because I mean, in high school, you've been going to school with these people, some of them since elementary school. So being able to meet new people, meet lifelong friends that like you'll have forever is like a big thing for me. I mean, it's just gonna be so cool that like all my future friends may be in college. And I think just the social aspect, just meeting new people, going out, having fun with it, as well as staying on top of football because I mean, we're in college, we're here for football, but you also need to balance and have fun.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, honestly, from being a freshman myself, I feel like that was one of the main things I was looking forward to is the social aspect. Even though I was not like a recruit, I feel like that's something that every person is gonna be really excited about. So that's pretty cool. And one final question. If you had to give like, say, your biggest goal for like your career as a Kentucky Wildcat, what would you say that is?
Well, I think the final goal for most people is the NFL.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely get that. And I guess I'll ask a follow-up then. You have any like favorite NFL teams you might want to go to? I mean, I know like we're looking a little in the future and it's a little ambitious, but still, if you were to like say pick an NFL team that you would really want to play for.
I myself am a Chiefs fan. I've always been a Chiefs
Okay.
fan.
There we
So
go.
I look up to Harrison Butker. So I'd love to play for the Chiefs. I feel like that'd be one team that would be really fun to play for.
Nice. Yeah, well, I'm excited to see the drives of Patrick Mahomes and you helping him out scoring some points in the near future. Thanks for the time, man.
Yes, sir.
Jason, you got it from here unless you want me to ask him other questions.
My bad. My mic was completely muted. Uh, like I said, I'd be back at the end with a couple more questions. Here's some questions that won't, require a lot of brain power. You ain't gotta be thinking too much. What would you say is your pregame playlist? Give me your top 5 songs that get you ready for any game.
Oh, I'm a big I'm a big Gunna and Youngboy fan. I know that sounds a lot of kickers like to listen to like calm music, but I'm more of the pump up music. I don't really have a particular particular songs I go to, but I think those two artists for sure get me the most hype for a game.
All right. So I know a lot of people have like some pregame rituals. Do you have any?
Yeah, so I'm very superstitious, especially being a kicker. Especially being a kicker, there's a lot of things that I go through. I do the same exact warm up every single time I kick, whether it's before the game, in practice, um, walkthroughs, whatever I'm preparing for. I go through the same stretching, the same kicking warm up, and everything. So following that regimen really makes me feel like ready and prepared mentally and physically for the game or for practice or whatever I'm preparing for. Um, I also have like certain like little things with like my equipment, like the way the order I put on my socks and shoes and everything. It sounds very weird, but um, I think the biggest thing is getting like the way I prepare for a game, the same warm up, the same stretching, everything.
All right. And my final question before I'll start with the sign off, and this one's very like out of left field. Would you ever consider wearing a shiesty while kicking in an SEC game?
Um, I mean,
Definitely an odd question.
if it came down to it, I guess I would.
All right. Well, thank you for
I'd be down.
joining us. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode. We understand you're an extremely busy man. You got the rest of your senior year, which is just a month. Yeah, it's about a month left. So take it in. I hope you're excited for college. We're excited to watch you play in the future. Super excited in the next 3 to 4 years to watch you in the NFL. I literally, middle of the episode when everybody else was asking questions, I deep searched you on YouTube to see some kicks, and damn, brother, that's accuracy. So I'm looking forward to watching you play. And as always, everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good night from the V2 crew. Thank you.